what was the crucial gap that you were trying to bridge and you thought of the idea that, you know what, we should start an accounting advisory practice at Pierag?
I wanted to create a place where people can experiment, identify what their real strengths are, and then use that to create tangible value for the clients.
And I want to know the entire story behind how it all started in order to set up this practice, make this team.
It was a sunny Sunday afternoon. No, nothing like that. So it was
In this organization, what are the main core values that we focus on, and how do these core values reflect in our day-to-day interactions with the clients when we deliver work to them?
Yeah, I call it as the power of three. So what's the power of three is it's a very simple rule.
How are we ensuring that we are not diluting those core values and culture along the way?
So we operate on a very simple principle. Every individual is different. Work cannot always be the first thing that they can pay attention to when they wake up.
Our team is like our family, and we are always there for each other in times of need. I want to know your thoughts of how we are embedding technology in our practice and how are we serving clients, how is it adding value?
We identified that what are the areas where an intervention using technology would be useful and will create value.
How do you think Gen Z adds value to our workforce like probably previous generations could not have?
Whatever time I have worked with this generation, I feel that inspiration works better.
Hello and welcome back to PieragCast. It's a podcast series where we decode market and bring you candid insights from leaders who are truly shaping the future of consulting. I am Priyamvada Mukherjee, a chartered accountant by profession. I've been working at Pierag for over 3 years now, and I work as a senior in the accounting advisory domain. Why today's conversation is very important is because of the fact that how technology is evolving and how things are changing. Today, building practice is not just about having expertise. It's about understanding people, understanding mindsets, understanding technology, and the fact that India itself is evolving. As we move towards 2047, we can see that the workforce today is already younger, hungrier, and more tech savvy than ever. And the way that we are building teams is also very different now, and it has been evolving. Today's conversation is something that I've personally been looking forward to for a while now. Today, we are going to talk about a very interesting story of how we built accounting advisory practice at Pierag and how we scaled it into one of the nation's top leading practices. And for that, we have the man behind it all, Mr. Manik Bansal. Manik is someone who has over 15 years of experience and has worked with organizations like Deloitte and EY in the past. He has built his career at the intersection of client service, technical accounting, and leadership. At Pierag, he guides our clients through everything from revenue recognition, share-based payments, lease accounting, business combination, to any other technical issue under IFRS and US GAAP. Welcome to the show, Manik.
Thank you, Priyamvada. Lovely to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Great, Manik. So let's start at the very beginning. I actually want to know what was that initial spark? What was the crucial gap that you were trying to bridge? And you thought of the idea that, you know what, we should start an accounting advisory practice at Pierag.
No, it's a really interesting question, and it's at the core of everything that we have been doing for the past few years. I always felt that there was a striking need for a very open and clear platform where one can apply itself. Now, if I were to break it down, I wanted to create a place where people can experiment, identify what their real strengths are, and then use that to create tangible value for the clients. The concept of tangible value, I feel, was somehow getting lost in the consulting space, and that is where we want to bring back the basics, that how important client service is, how important talent development is. And in the introduction you talked about a workforce being hungrier than ever, a workforce being readier than ever. We need to have a place for them where they can really realize their potential. And I think with that thought in mind, we wanted to build something that's ready not just for the India, but for the world, where the people, our talent can compete and deliver on the global stage. So I think that was the central idea, but yeah, a lot more things were added to it later.
Wonderful, Manik. And it's very true. Like, often the biggest leaps start with the simplest ideas, and a single observation or an insight can actually evolve into an entire practice, which now we see is serving clients globally. So, I'm very looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today. And I want to know the entire story behind how it all started. From the very first thing that came into your mind, what were the unconventional steps that you took in order to like set up this practice, make this team? I would really like to know.
Do you want me to talk about the paper story?
Absolutely. I am sure the
Okay.
audience is going to really enjoy that.
Okay, let's just break it down. Sunny Sunday afternoon. No, nothing like that. So it was, lunch that I was having with our founder almost 3.5 years back in March of 22. I was supposed to be a part of Pierag in April. And I think that is when we thought that, okay, let's meet up and understand that how we are going to align our visions in terms of building this. And I think we had our lunch, and then Abhishek, the founder, he asked me that, okay, do you want to talk about what you want to do in next 6 months? And I think that is where I started talking, and all of a sudden he kind of requested the server to get a pen and a piece of paper, and we started writing. When we started writing about things that we want to do today, things that are very core to defining what the practice would be, and things that are going to keep us relevant for at least many more years to come. So I think with that vision in mind, we built a very strong case on paper that, okay, this is how the team is going to build. These are the ideal clients that we are going to serve. This is the kind of portfolio of services that we are going to start with. And then when all of it was done, I kind of asked myself that, yes, it looks really good on paper, but is it something that can be brought to life? And that is when Abhishek said that, we're going to do this together. So I think that is when I realized a very strong cultural aspect of this organization, that yes, collaboration lies within the part of the DNA of the organization. That to me was a very strong incentive to be a part of this and build. And that is what we started with.
That's wonderful, Manik. And since I've been working in this organization for 3 years myself, I could resonate with a lot of it. And I truly believe that from my personal experience, the focus that we put on technical knowledge and depth, the speedy delivery to the clients, and also the intentional hiring, they've truly paved the way for our growth in this organization. But I just feel like if you could elaborate a little more on how it all started, like we know the paper story because I know it personally. I would want the audience to connect with it more. So could you kindly elaborate on that?
If I were to explain that in simple words, let's say you're building a home. What would you do? You'll start by laying a very strong foundation, which we call as neve in our local language, right? You will spend as much as time on building the foundation as much as you're gonna kind of spend time on adding all the different floors that you want to add. Same thing happened with us. When we started picking those core concepts on that piece of paper, we stayed true to that even today, and we want to stay true to it for the foreseeable future. So things like tangible value, things like client service or user experience, I think those were central to whatever we wanted to do. So when we started, there were a handful of team members who specialized in technical accounting. So that was the only thing that we started with. We did not start with all at once. So that served as the foundation. And while we delivered technical accounting, we talked about all the other core values slowly and steadily with our team members as the team kept growing, so that those get ingrained and become a part of our DNA as a team. And then as we grew, we added things like financial reporting, both for the US and the India markets. We crafted a specific service offering called audit readiness, which in itself was very unique because it was a blend of technical accounting, financial reporting, CFO office management and support. The idea behind crafting audit readiness was that we kept hearing a lot of problem statements where either auditors were resigning midway, or with a lot of audits getting closed with multiple observations, wherein not every time there was a fault of the way the company was working, it was lack of preparedness. So I think that is when we came up with this offering, and now we are expanding further into transaction, and that is where the name of the team has also kind of re-envisioned from accounting to accounting and transactions advisory, where we have already built a very strong team of financial due diligence, and now we are adding the feather of valuations to it. So the idea is to kind of complete the whole stack of whatever comes into accounting and transactions advisory domain, but still make sure that the fundamental or the foundation is as strong as it was on day one.
That's amazing, Manik. And I loved how you framed it, like laying the foundation before adding floors. It's a very simple analogy, but it truly reflects the essence of our team and how we work with so much confidence and clarity. And that brings me to the next segment. So, when a practice grows, it doesn't just grow because the work grows, it grows because the people inside it, their mindset is aligned in a particular way of thinking. And we talk a lot about core values in our organization. I would want to know what are the core values that we swear by in this organization. What are the main core values that we focus on, and how do these core values reflect in our day-to-day interactions with the clients when we deliver work to them?
Interesting. This is something that is very special to me. I call it as the power of three. So what's a power of three is, it's a very simple rule. You have learned your ABCs in your infancy, in your childhood. We teach our people DC and T. What is DC and T? D stands for domain, C stands for clients, and T stands for technology. And if you may allow, I'll just talk in a bit of detail about all of these.
Absolutely.
So when I say D, the primary meaning of D is domain. And when I say domain, it does not just mean accounting standards. Domain means you have to understand in depth everything about a project that you're working on. If you're working for a pharmaceutical company, you should know how a pharmaceutical company operates, whether they are into B2B sales, whether they are into B2C segments, what is their revenue generation model, what kind of practices that they operate, whether they are aligned with the best practices, what kind of accounting principles and frameworks govern them, what kind of regulatory reporting requirements they fall into or get scoped in. So, domain means that you have to know everything that matters for you to effectively deliver your project. And then, like everything in life, it also has a secondary meaning. Domain also means basic core values like dedication, discipline, discipline being one of the most important pillars that has kept our boat afloat, and then having a sense of direction, whether you know where you are headed as an individual, either at a project level, at a practice level, or your own career level. So I think a sense of direction has to be there. Now, talking about the second element, clients. Clients are the reason why we exist in the first place, and we remind ourselves of that every day. So I draw my inspiration when it comes to client service from areas like hospitality, from areas like retail, wherever there are direct client service interactions or client facing interactions, for the lack of a better word. You would see the kind of effort that these people put in to make sure that their clients are served well. I challenge myself and my team members every day that whether we are making equal amount of efforts in generating that kind of user experience. If not, we got to do better. So I think that is where concepts like tangible value. Are you required, or do you feel the need to continuously prove to your client that you're generating value for them, or does it really show on its own? I would prefer the latter, because if there's tangible value that you're creating, your clients would realize, understand, and appreciate your presence, and that is all that matters. But then again, other areas when interpreting C is commitment, collaboration. Collaboration, as I talked in the beginning as well, is something that we feel we cannot exist without. We have to collaborate. We don't work in silos, and we never intend to. The last piece, technology, the T word, that's the most interesting and the word that's going to become ever more relevant in the future. So while T stands for technology, it's not something that we have cooked up today, considering all the FOMO that you see around AI, agents, bots, this and that. No. Again, going back to the piece of paper, when we wrote our vision few years back, we were very clear that we want to integrate and elevate our service delivery through the use or right blend of technology. We were very clear that as we are building a platform with next 2 decades in mind, we will not be able to serve our clients effectively, efficiently, or continuously generate value for them if we don't adapt to the changing technology landscape on an ongoing basis.
Manik, if you may allow me, I would like to pause you there for a while. I know you're very passionate about technology, and technology is the way to go. But we have a special segment which is dedicated just into technology. So, like you mentioned, how D had different meanings, C had different meanings. I'm sure T also has other meanings apart from technology. Why don't we focus on those right now so that we can bring up the technology in a later segment?
Yeah, so T has different meanings. Yes, the secondary meanings or the more fundamental definition of T for us as a team or as an organization is transparency. T also means turnaround, which is very important. If I were to talk about how we implement this in real life, we use very simple tricks. We use very simple protocols. For example, to serve our clients better or to make sure that they feel heard, we have a simple protocol of a 24-hour response time. Every communication that gets initiated from the client's side has to be responded to within 24 hours. It's okay if you don't have a solution within 24 hours, but you have to acknowledge that you're working on it. Talking about things like the what is the threshold that you keep for an error rate. So our threshold is 0.5%. If I were to break it down in simple words, if you are working on 100 different things, or if you are processing 100 transactions, you cannot go wrong even once. Although if you do 200, then you might have a liberty to be wrong once, and that is something that our clients also understand. But even then, you don't have the liberty to repeat it. So same error, same thing does not get repeated. The last and the most important piece is how we manage our timelines and so that our commitments to our clients stay true. We follow a T minus one approach, wherein if something was promised on T, it has to be ready a day before. If not, then you have already missed your timeline, even if you deliver on T. Yes, it might sound a little too disciplinary, but I think these kind of things have made it possible for us to create a place where people are able to kind of deliver value and also upskill themselves at the same time.
Absolutely, Manik. And being a part of this team from the very beginning, I could completely resonate to each and everything that you said. I mean, these are not just mere words. You actually feel these values when you're working together, when you're tackling problems together, facing challenges. And also the fact that we focus so much on constant upskilling through regular trainings that we have, the structured mentorship programs, these have all really paid off, and we have actually grown exponentially, and now we're a team of more than 50 people. So we have built an ecosystem where we are encouraging people to bring their ideas to the table irrespective of their designation, because at the end of the day it's the contribution that matters and not hierarchy. Here we have, I have seen from my own personal experience, and you have encouraged me as well, here basically curiosity is rewarded. You always say that come up with your own ideas, explore your own things. So these are things that have really paved the way for our growth. So my next questions would be on terms of culture that we are trying to build here. I know for you, culture and core values are different things. So I would just want to know what sort of a culture are you trying to build at Pierag? And since we are growing so exponentially, are we adding so many new faces to the company? How are we ensuring that we are not diluting those core values and culture along the way?
Let me break this down. So, if I were to talk about culture, I would say the very center of this is an individual. So, I'll not even use the term people, I'll say individual. So, we operate on a very simple principle that every individual is different. We respect that and we feel that it makes us even more powerful. For example, you sitting here and hosting this podcast is a personal milestone for me. I take pride in this, that one of my team members is hosting me and has been associated with us for more than 3 years now. And similarly is the rest of the team. Majority of our people have been with us since the time we started, so we have only grown, and that is one of the reasons why we have grown. Now, coming back to the point of focusing on an individual, it helps to make sure that you are not adapting to, or are not, you're not adhering to, one size fits all kind of an approach. The way I see it is that we have been able to create a platform which is more like a real life lab. And when I say a real life lab, it means that people get to experiment. As you said, that we encourage curiosity because it helps us also reshape our thinking. It also helps us challenge the status quo. And that's where we are able to harness the power and the mindset of this younger generation. So rather than identifying how they don't fit in a predefined scale, I would love to give them an opportunity wherein for an year or a couple of years, they just experiment on multiple work streams, identify what works for them, identify what their strengths are, and then play on front foot at that. So I think that has been the approach that we have taken, and it seems to be working well so far. Also, since we're talking about culture, which cannot again operate in a silo, if we talk about at an organization level, again, there are three very key elements of our culture, which we call as the triple E. The triple E is equity, excellence, and empathy. So, equity is that we make sure each individual in the firm gets treated equally and has the same equality of opportunity. Excellence, again, as I talked about, the domain, the clients, thinking forward, foreseeable future. So excellence, the error threshold, that all contributes to the excellence, the kind of user experience that we generate. And empathy is that at the end of the day, we understand that we are dealing with humans. So when you're dealing with humans, they have professional responsibilities, but at the same time, they do have their personal lives. Things happen, both good and unfortunate. They can have shifting priorities. Work cannot always be the first thing that they can pay attention to when they wake up. So I think that is where we work very closely with our team members to ensure that they understand that we understand them.
Absolutely, Manik. Like, I can vouch for the fact that our team is like our family, and we are always there for each other in times of need. And we celebrate all festivities together. We give back to the society in form of CSR initiatives. And also, we not just focus on the professional development of an individual, but also the personal development. We sit with them, we give them time, we give them mentorship. So, absolutely, our culture is very enriched. And from that, we would like to move on to our next segment, which I'm sure you're very excited to talk about. It's going to be on technology. Before we move on, Manik, I'd like to share a short story with our audience. So, Steve Jobs had once said something that stayed with me for years. He basically said that if technology is done right, it should almost feel like an extension of the human body. It should be so seamless that you don't notice the technology, but you notice the experience. Let's talk about the first iPad or the first iPhone. I mean, it was nothing too complicated, nothing too flashy, but we already knew what to do. Our fingers were automatically scrolling. That's how technology should feel. It should feel almost seamless and so human that it adapts to you rather than you adapting to the technology. And on that note, I want to firstly let our audience know that we recently won an award on digital transformation at Pierag. And I would want to know your thoughts because I had interrupted you previously. So I know you had a lot to share about technology. I want to know your thoughts of how we are embedding technology in our practice and how are we serving clients, how is it adding value? So could you kindly elaborate on it?
Well, first of all, congratulations to all of us for winning that award. I think it's a really significant milestone, and kind of it provides a lot of validation to the efforts that different teams are doing in this space. If I were to talk about how we have approached technology as a subject, as I said initially, that we realized the importance of it from the word go, that yes, this has to be embedded. It has to be a way of service delivery for us. Similarly, you talk about things being a way of life for somebody. So I think with that kind of thought process in mind, we created or we curated a very specific approach of how we are going to embed technology. Now, if you look at different accounting advisory offerings that we have in our booking, we identified that what are the areas where an intervention using technology would be useful and will create value. So, for example, data is one thing that we deal with on a day to day basis, huge chunks of data. Now, I meet so many CFOs, so many finance leaders, and you would be surprised to see that how many times they struggle to identify the single source of truth. They might have 10 different data streams within an organization telling 5 different stories of the same period. It is a little difficult to absorb, but it is the reality because so much data is getting generated on a day to day basis. The next part is, now, even if you've got a single source of truth identified, how do you present it or articulate it in a way that facilitates decision making, that does not create additional layer of clutter, or that does not overwhelm you? The last part, with the technology landscape, especially the AI and the machine learning piece evolving so fast, how do you use that to resolve redundancies, to take away work, to reduce work that does not require any judgment, any subjectivity, or any human application of self? So these were the three things that we identified. Now, when we identified that, we've built our entire technology integration approach on these three things. For the first piece, we call it something as unified data solutions, where people in our teams, people who are functionally trained, people who have data engineering background, they come together as a group of techno functional people and build very clean, very clear data flows and data pipelines, so that different sources of data gets aggregated, transformed, and flows to the presentation layer in a very clear and automated way. The second part is around data visualization. We call it interactive visualization. When we built this capability, we built this with a mindset that the visuals should not only be aesthetically pleasing. The visuals should facilitate decision making. The visuals should clearly bring out exceptions, clearly bring out areas where executive attention is required. And that is where our focus on domain really helped. The people who had years of experience behind themselves, who had worked in roles of a CF or a finance leader in the past, helped us build or craft the structure or themes of those visualizations. And then our ever aspirational team of coders really helped us build strong capabilities around automation, leveraging technologies like RPA, service, different kind of services or rule engines from AWS, Microsoft Azure, and other things. So that is how we built this entire value chain with a very specific need statement for each of the verticals, clearly embedded into the output or the expected output. Now, another challenge that was in front of us was when you are doing something like this, how do you make it, or what is the most efficient approach to go about it? So, to identify that, now when we were doing this, there was a challenge in front of us that with the overall technology landscape evolving so fast, how do you build something that is super agile, that can adapt or scale to the changing technological platforms and still stay relevant? So I think that is where we, rather than building a tool or a product, we focused more on building capabilities. We focused more on low code, no code solutions kind of an approach. We created use cases which can be put in use within the client's ecosystem, not in months but in weeks. And that is what really made us run the wheels or spin the wheels faster. So rather than taking 6 months for a project wherein the proof of concept is completed, then another 6 months to build a prototype, and then 2 years to get a platform up and running, we identify a problem statement in this period ends close, put in a use case or identify use case in next 2 weeks, put in a prototype in another 2 weeks, and by the end of their third period close, a solution is already running in their production system with all the checks and balances and technological security wide validations in place. So I think that is how we have been able to evolve and build into something. And the most interesting part is, it's not only the people with strong development capabilities or so-called developers or coders that are doing this. It's people like you, people, a lot of other people who are working on real clients, who are our client service professionals coming from backgrounds like CAs, ACCAs, CPAs, MBAs. These are the people who are contributing to this initiative. And I'm very happy to say that the overall ecosystem is flourishing in a way that every second day I keep hearing on the floor, hey, this is happening on my client. Do you think we can do it differently? This is happening on my client. Do you think we can use or we can leverage a tool to do this faster? So it has kind of become the way people operate. They continually identify problem statements that can be addressed, and they keep solving it on the go. And that is what led to our client retention and growth. If I just talk about a few examples, such a young team, we are already serving two of the top five VC funds in the country, managing their portfolios. We and providing different services to them. We are working with many of the large listed clients in the country. We are working with leading management consulting firms in the US, which was an area that nobody thought that a person sitting in India can serve. So again, the concept of DCT, whatever we are doing in the technology space, and the way we have been able, the way we are able to empower our people, I think that is contributing to the growth and the kind of presence that is felt across the fraternity with Pyrex name today.
Absolutely, Manik, especially the world that we live in where technology and AI is no longer the future, it is the present. And I've seen that Pirag has taken that early mover advantage because, from my own personal experience, I've seen in our team, we started building interactive dashboards very early on. We have aggregated huge chunks of information using Power Query or different tools, and we have seen how client gets excited and they rely on us and trust in our decisions, and they look forward to more automation opportunities from our end. That truly reflects that how we have embedded technology in our day-to-day workings, and it has really added a lot of value to our clients, to our team internally, and have paved the way for our growth. So, coming from technology, next topic is something which is very fascinating because I belong to the same generation. We're going to talk about Gen Z and their role at the workplace. So basically, before that, I just noticed something very recently. I could see that generational differences is very interesting. A few days ago, I had just ordered something from Blinkit. It was maybe like a toothpaste or something equally boring, and it arrived as usual in under 10 minutes. And I saw my mom gave me that look. She's like, in our days, we would just, if something would run out, we would just go down to the store, we'll get it. And that helps you build discipline, that helps you build a routine. And I'm not judging them. I mean, they have grown up in a world where they have valued effort, because effort was the way to get everything done in their times. But we have grown up in a generation where we have so much access. It's not that we are lazy, it's just that we are wired to think in a way that, in a smarter way. Like, why would I go to a store, stand in a queue, wait in a queue for 30 minutes, and then get the product where I can get it under 8 to 10 minutes, that too at a discount? So Gen Z is highly, I feel like, they're misjudged. It's not about being lazy. Gen Z people do not actually defy authority, or they do not challenge authority. It's just that I feel like they come from a place of genuine curiosity. They always try to question things, and what's the purpose behind a particular thing. I mean, for them, respect doesn't automatically come from somebody's job title, because in our previous generations we would automatically have respect for someone from a higher designation, because that's how we were conditioned to think. But I feel like Gen Z is kind of defying that, and it sometimes them feel like they're like being rebellious, or they're not being cooperative. But you work with such a young and dynamic team. What are your thoughts? How do you deal with people? How do you think Gen Z adds value to our workforce, like probably previous generations could not have? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I can sense a significant amount of excitement in your voice when you talked about that. So, okay, let me try and approach that differently. What do you think would be the average age of our team?
I would say around 20, less than 25. A lot of people are less than 25 years of age.
You're close, but we are not that young as well. The average age of our team is somewhere between 25 and 30, which is still by definition Gen Z. Although, when I last checked, I do not qualify to be a Gen Z myself. But yes, that does not make me old either. Okay, so coming back to that thought, I think very aptly put what you're saying, that yes, you talked about 2047 in the beginning, and how India has one of the most significant demographic dividends today. And at the core of this is, yes, the Gen Z people, or the new generations that are coming or getting added to our workforce. So I see it as a constant battle between being compliant, or expected to comply, or being inspired. So I think it's a fight between compliance versus inspiration. For me, whatever time I have worked with this generation, I feel that inspiration works better. So, a simple example, 10 years back, the designation of a person by virtue would made me not question that person. But today, can I expect my people not to question me just because I carry a certain designation? The answer is a clear, resounding no. And in fact, how this has changed me individually as well. Today, if they don't question me, even I would not like it, because that's the kind of workplace that we have created over the period. Now, when the newer generations, or the people who you are hiring today, question you, that does not mean defiance for me. For me, that means that the virtue of a designation, or an age, or an authority in itself is not good enough for them. They want to understand how strong your core is, how good you are at your subject that you are trying to teach them. They are not challenging you as an individual, it's not personal, but they are challenging what you bring to the table, so that they can understand whether this is the right thing for them or not. And that is where people like me, we need to step up our game. We need to understand that yes, if you can make them believe that this is the right space for them, this is where they can learn continuously, they can grow. I think once you're past that test, you'll see a very different level of energy coming from this generation. And it might sound a little difficult, because we have grown through the ladder by being compliant, and now all of a sudden you see somebody who has joined you 2 weeks back questioning your creds. But this is the reality that we operate with. And talking on a more fundamental level, I think this generational debate has always been there. What people fail to understand that the biggest strengths of human species is the incremental knowledge base that gets passed on to each generation. So I think we are one of the few species in the world, or maybe the only species in the world, which pass on their knowledge, their acumen to the coming generations. So they ought to be smarter. And that is where you have to realize that if you up your game and create a sense of synchronization or harmony with them, then it's a lethal combination. Right or wrong, that is what my take is, and that is how I am trying to approach this. And you tell me if it is working or not.
Absolutely, Manik. I completely agree with you. When you were explaining, there was just phrase that came to my mind. I feel like the Gen Z's motto when it comes to their mentor is the fact that help me learn, help me trust your direction. That's exactly what they're doing. They're not trying to defy anything, but just trying to gauge and just showing their curiosity. And I also feel like their comfort with technology, their focus on purpose, the speed with which they are able to adapt and learn quickly, these truly add new flavors and more energy to our team. And if one last question with regard to Gen Z I had in my mind, if there was one myth that you had to bust about Gen Zs once and for all, what would it be?
That they cannot do deep work. I believe they can if they understand the bigger picture, and if they understand how different pieces of puzzle fit in, and the importance that gets attached to the piece of work that they're delivering. Yes, we live in an age of distractions, we live in an age of screens, we are almost distracted every different second, but still I believe the deep work can get done. However, there's just one unsolicited advice or a word of caution that I'll have for this generation. That is, it is absolutely right to challenge the status quo. Please do that. That's how you're helping us be a better versions of ourselves. But when you're challenging, just make sure you understand and identify the purpose of that challenge. Whether the purpose of the challenge is to learn something, whether the purpose of the challenge is to try doing something in a better way, whether the purpose of a challenge is to improve, or whether the purpose of the challenge is just for the sake of challenging. Just don't do the last one, rest everything is fine. And in fact, rest everything is super helpful for all of us. And that's how you're going to take us forward, the entire nation forward.
Thank you so much, Manik. That brings us to the end of our podcast today. And it was a very insightful, very fun conversation that I had with you. And I'm sure our audience is also going to take a lot from this conversation that we had today. And in the end, would you just like to sum it up or just share your thoughts? Anything with our audience?
I think we talked about a very interesting segment in the end about the future generations, or how the different interactions in the workplace is happening. I believe when we started this team, all we had was our fundamentals, our core value systems. We have made our best efforts, endeavors to retain it today, and it seems to be working for us. That being said, we are also able to push down these fundamentals to the younger leaders that are coming up in the ladder and embrace technology. So, all in all, I believe that we are very closely aligned with the spirit of the entire nation, in terms of how the entire nation is kind of rallying together today to build a greater future and become a world power, you know, in the coming times. So we are trying to be a part of that larger picture, and that's what drives me on a day-to-day basis. But again, Priyamada, thank you so much for having me here. Every day when I walk into our offices and meet each of my team members or meet each of my clients, I feel, or I cherish what we have done so far, and I feel there's a lot more that we can do together if we do it right.
Absolutely, Manik. I mean, today's episode was very special to me because it was all about my team and I had a lot of fun. I already knew most of the stories, but it is always good to like think about how it all started and where we are today. It has been truly an enriching journey for each member of the team. I'm sure everybody is going to vouch for that. And in the end, I'd just like to thank our audience for tuning in. I hope you had a fun session. And if you want more such conversations, please stay tuned to our podcast series. Thank you.